Hey, if you haven't subscribed to the Mike Broomhead Show podcast, you can do it right now. It's very simple to do on any device that you have. Never miss a minute of the show. The Mike Broomhead Show podcast brought to you this week by your Valley Chevy dealers. An ABC News poll, almost 90% of America, 86% of Americans do not feel that Joe Biden is in good enough shape to serve another term as president. It was carried out on Saturday after a special counsel report. They began to survey the American people. Now, to be clear, there's no way that this one report changed 90% of the country, 86% of the country's mind. This is something that's been concerning to many people. And if you're just checking out the show for the first time, you're not a regular listener, this is not something that I've really talked about at all leading up to this report from the DOJ. I didn't like it when it happened to Trump, and it wasn't a report from the DOJ. It was the media that was doing it. When Trump was in office, and this is not a defense of Donald Trump. I get these emails from people as if somehow I'm an apologist for the Trump administration. I certainly am not. I've had my criticisms of every administration. My criticism here is of what we do for political reasons that are not good for the country. So when Trump was in office, there was a narrative about the 25th Amendment. To be clear, what happens in this part of the 25th Amendment gives powers to the cabinet to remove the powers of the president if, God forbid, a president is incapacitated and cannot carry on the job. And so we have a way of that power is handed down. If a president dies in office, the power of the presidency goes to the vice president. From the vice president, it goes to the Speaker of the House, and then on down the line. They had to do this, obviously, so that we had a constitutional way to make sure that the country always had a leader. When the president goes in for surgery, when the president is incapacitated, they temporarily give power over to the vice president of the United States. All of these things matter. All of these things are important. But what would happen if a president, God forbid, if a president was incapacitated for a length of time, was not able to relinquish the power of the presidency, him or herself, but was incapacitated? That's what this amendment did, was give the power to the government to remove presidential powers, and then they give that power over to the vice president. If within a couple of weeks the president is able to go back into power, the president can lobby the courts, can go to the Supreme Court, and can then get the power restored to them. And that's the way it works. It goes to the Congress, and that's the way it works. And when you say what we want to do is get rid of a president so badly, we're willing to twist the meaning of something. Republicans have done it as well. There's no doubt about it. In this case, what they did was try to twist this around. And so when the narrative caught on, you had Morning Joe, Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski and Rachel Maddow and others that would bring on mental health experts, so to speak. These mental health experts also had a political agenda because the protocol within the industry, whether it's medicine or it's mental health and it's mental health experts, is you don't render an opinion on somebody you haven't examined. And so these people did. And they said President Trump isn't able to do this and he shouldn't do that and he shouldn't be near the nuclear codes and he's a danger. And our enemies use that information. So I've stayed away from all of the criticisms and all of the jokes and everything else about Biden on this show. I didn't do any of it. We didn't go down any of those roads. I didn't play a lot of the sound of him bumbling and stumbling over his words and not being able to. But the world sees it. Now you get a DOJ report that says that he is an old, well-intentioned old man with a bad memory or whatever the quote was. And you look at that and you think, what is the world saying? The world looks to the U.S. The Western world looks to the U.S. as a superpower. You've got these two sides. Again, the battle lines are being drawn, and I mean that metaphorically, of course. I don't believe there's going to be a war. But you've got the Chinese, you've got the Russians, you've got the North Koreans, you've got the Iranians, you've got this powerful group of nations together. They look to the Chinese. They look to the Chinese for the economy. They look to the Chinese for the military. That's what they're looking at. And in the Western world, when you've got the Europeans, you've got the Israelis, you've got our nations on our side, the allied forces, as we've called them, they look to the U.S. Not solely, but they certainly look to the U.S. They look at our form of government. They look at our leaders. They watch our elections. They pay very close attention to what's happening. What is the appearance of leadership in America right now? Do your enemies not strike when you're weak? And I don't necessarily mean a war. I'm saying with what's going on in the world, 86% of Americans don't believe that this president is fit for a second term. So what does that say about our choices as voters? The poll also found that 73%, almost three-quarters of Democrats think Biden is too old to serve, and a whopping 91% of independents feel the same way. America is speaking out, and what's happening is people aren't listening. It is sad to see. I will tell you that I am, long before I am a Republican, I'm an American. I want my country strong. I want my country safe. I want my country peaceful. I want it moving ahead and functioning. I want to be proud of my country. That doesn't mean I'm happy with the decision makers. You know where I stand politically, but to see the American president falter in this way, it doesn't make me happy. I'm not happy to see this. It's heartbreaking to watch. Anyway, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. You look what happened to Ronald Reagan late in his life, long after his presidency, and he was outside of the public view, and he was able to gracefully end his life. His life was ended with him at peace, and we saw the videos of the Ronald Reagan we remembered. From a Republican point of view, I want you to think about that. He is held in such high esteem in the Republican Party and known as the great communicator. Imagine had this happened to him during his presidency. And I'm not saying that this is exactly what's happening to President Biden, but if you watched him and watched him diminish during his presidency, how sad it would be for the people that loved that presidency. He was able to do this in privacy where you should. I used Bruce Willis as an example because it's not the same, it's not politics, but as a human being, here is somebody remember as an action star and a funny actor and just a quick wit and really good at his job, and everybody loved his movies, and at least I did. I loved his movies, and he is able to now gracefully in silence, surrounded by his family as he diminishes, is doing that without being in the public view. What we are watching, just from a human perspective, forget the political implications and the worldwide implications, is we are seeing things happen that we shouldn't have to see. It's sad that this is happening. And what really bothers me more than anything else is that he continues, at least it looks like now, it is now February 12th. We are almost in the middle of February. We've got an election in just a few months. And you've got a president who is still going to be the nominee for his party. It is a terrible thing to witness. The implications for America, and unfortunately you have to look at those things, is that it's not just about America, our power and our place in the world and what we do and what we mean to the world. This is not a joke to me. You know, I've got a twisted sense of humor. I laugh at everything. But when it comes down to it with this, it's not a joke. You've got the President of the United States, the most powerful office on the planet, and his own Justice Department is questioning his ability. 91% of independent voters. How do you get to 91% of anything in the political climate we have? 91% of independents in this country believe he is unfit for another term, and yet he continues to be the guy that they're pushing out there. I think it's disgraceful. It's bad for America. It's sad for the Biden family. I don't think it's something that we should continue to watch. But the political circles, you watch how things are going. They hate the former president. They hate Donald Trump. They don't want to see him in office. And what they are willing to do to make sure that he isn't in there, even if it means propping up and running a person that 91% of the country doesn't think is fit. It's a sad state. It just is a sad state to me. Coming up in a moment, If you bet against the Chiefs, you made the wrong move. We're going to talk about the implications of the Super Bowl, what a big weekend it was, and the things that surrounded it. All that's coming up here in just a moment.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch and listen to the new season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.